Last year, we released these bad boys. Arguably, and I think a pretty good argument to make that these are the best value heritage boots that really anyone makes. Thursday is the king of value. So when they came to us to make the ultimate version of their captain boot, we just slammed this thing chock full of leather, built it like a true heritage boot through and through, veg tan toe, veg tan heel counter, veg tan all the way through. And yet, people still were like, yeah, we'll see. Doubt that's actually what's on the inside. We'll see when I get my pair. And then even after we launched them, people were like, yeah, this is the first time we're gonna launch them. They're all gonna be good quality, but the moment that they saw this first batch, they're all gonna drop in quality, just watch. And it's shocking how much adversity you get when you're trying to make something super good and super affordable for people to actually enjoy the true heritage qualities at a very affordable price. So in the spirit of people thinking that Thursday completely sold out, that we sold out, they're just drop the quality and this and that, this year, when we released the StormKing version, we had to cut it. We had to prove what's on the inside, and I had to do it for myself. I had to make sure that this boot still represents what we put our name behind on this version. And so we're gonna cut this in half, run through all of our tests to really figure out, did we sell out? Is this boot still at the quality that we built into the Heritage Captain last year? And ultimately, are these still arguably the best value true heritage boots that money can buy? Spoiler, they are. Instead of just talking about Nick Wax, I figured we'd actually give it a try, because if you're watching this channel, there's a good chance you got a dirty pair of boots or shoes that could use a little conditioning, waterproofing, cleaning. So let's put it to the test. Next to the fabric and leather proof, I've already got it wet. Give it a quick spritz, 6 inches away. Same thing with the suede. And while this dries, a little bit about Nick Wax. It started in 1977, and Nick Wax has been a high performance waterproofing company basically ever since. And their stuff is PFAS free. And on top of that, all the Nick Wax products are water based, so they're non-flammable and they're safe for you and the planet. So now looking at the results, what do we have? Let's look at the actual fabric and leather waterproofer. It did dull it just a little bit. You can see it has a little less shine than the Control. And then on the suede side, same story, just a little bit darker. That's because it's not dry all the way, but by the time it's fully dry, as you can see from this pic here, no change whatsoever. So pretty good results across the board. And the thing I like most is they're very light conditioners. So many other ones on the market are way too heavy, too much mink oil, too much wax, and it completely changes the color and vibe of your boot. Whereas with Nick Wax, it's a lot lighter while still giving you all the waterproofing and protection you need. So don't do your boots dirty, clean and waterproof them with Nick Wax and make your gear last longer, and check them out, the links in my description. And thanks again to Nick Wax for sponsoring this video. So then what are these boots? Well, the brand is Thursday x Rose Anvil. The style is the Heritage Captain StormKing edition. They weigh a surprisingly light 1 pound 12 ounces. They retail for a shockingly affordable $235. And they're made in Mexico. And the way we position this boot is basically after we launched the other Heritage Captain, people are like, love it, but I want like a regular luggy sole on it. I want like a more rugged version. I want like a little bit closer to that logger without being overtly logger. And I was like, I agree, same. Like I want a little bit more chunky luggy version. And so that's why we did it in the StormKing version. And like I said, this was an attempt by me and Nolan, the CEO of Thursday, to absolutely make the most undeniable boot of all time. Undeniable quality, undeniable style, undeniable everything, but especially the value. Because you really don't get in the true heritage boot space with all veg tan components and true heritage construction until you get to that $350 plus price range. And so that's why we kind of nicknamed this boot the undeniable boot, and that was our attempt. So, what about this version? What do we have for leather? It's 2.5 millimeters thick, so right where you want to be for that heritage thickness. I think it's actually even a little bit thicker than the other one. I think this is more closer to like 2.3. It's a lot softer and a more malleable leather. I don't actually know how they do this leather because it has that really flat finish on top, like a true heritage leather, but it's really soft and supple. We burned the leather to see if there's any plastic coats on top, nothing on top. We looked at the macro finish. You can see it, you can see all the pores and all the grain. Maybe it's slightly sanded, but it's enough of a full grain leather that you can still see all the pores and stuff. We did the puncture test on it, punctured through at 59 pounds. Not the best results, but not terrible. So is this leather $600 leather, $100 leather? Where does this kind of fit? I think it fits right where it needs to be, like your more affordable heritage boot price range, anything from like $200 up to like $400. Because once you start getting to that $350 to $400 range, you see more of like the actual name brand tanneries, like Horween, like Seidel, like some of these other guys. But for $230, it's really good leather for the price. Which leather do I like more out of these two leathers? I still like this leather more. You know, it's just a classic kind of ruggedy leather, but this is a lot more sleek because I love black boots. I just like blacked out everything, and this fits that perfectly for me. But what about the inside? Did we change anything on the lining? Does it still have the internal counter cover? Yes, it does. If you look down in there, you still got that exact same internal counter cover. If I reach down inside, is there still a leather lining through the toe? Yes. And if I look down on top, still has that full length insole topper with foam underneath the heel, which you can see right here. Just a little bit of squish in the heel, but having a softer leather. And this is something that me and Nolan went back and forth on. Because I was more in the camp of like, let's just have them stand on hard veg tan. You know, like that's the traditional way of doing it. And then Nolan convinced me to do this way because you're still standing on leather, but this leather's a lot softer, a lot more supple. So you get that initial break-in of having a softer material underneath your foot while still being leather, so it still has that durability and that break-in. You obviously still have a potential fail point of this coming up and coming unglued. It's not the biggest failure point, but if that did happen, it'd be really annoying. And so it's a trade-off. Thursday has built their name off of taking the heritage style of making boots and shoes and softening them up, making them a little bit more comfortable, a little bit softer, a little bit more comfort-based materials, more slim silhouettes. At the end of the day, I agreed with him. I was like, let's add some extra comfort in there as long as it's still a heritage quality material. Okay, what about the midsole? The original Heritage Captain is a 270-degree Goodyear Welt, where you have the nailed heel. You can see where there's no welt stitches around here. And you can see the nails going onto the inside. Whereas the new StormKing is a 360 Goodyear Welt construction. What are the pros and cons? A lot of it comes down to style and aesthetic and like true heritage ways of doing things versus more modern heritage ways of doing things. The nailed heel is gonna be heavier. It's gonna be a lot better used when you have a full leather heel stack like this, so you can tie all those layers together. Because in a unit sole like this outsole is, where it's not two separate pieces, you don't really need those nails going up through and lock them into place. So it is a little bit less heritage in that way with a 360 Goodyear Welt. A lot of people are like, it's still Goodyear Welt, it's still heritage. But you know, we're reviewing and trying to critique every square inch of something that I was involved in. So we gotta point out even the smallest little things. At the end of the day, which one would I rather have? I think I'd still rather have the nailed heel. I think I just like that tight little heel. I like the classic way of doing things, but there's really wasn't a reason to do it on a unit sole like this. And speaking of that unit sole, this is very similar, if not exactly the same, as the regular Captain, at least this version of the Captain with the more luggy sole, because it looks like it's the exact same pattern. We did the durometer test on this, both at 70 Shore A, so it's still that really heavy duty work boot style of hardness where it's gonna take a long time to wear through. It's gonna be really grippy for a long time. And this is obviously based more around like a hiking style outsole, even though these aren't really hiking boots. You still could hike in them, but this is more to make a semi-casual boot look more rugged and still have the rugged functionality if you do need to hike in these. Because I don't think anyone's really buying these for hiking boots. But that flexibility and that hybrid style that you could hike in them is part of where that whole versatility of making an undeniable boot comes from. Maybe in an ideal world, it's a Vibram outsole. I think that's a critique that people would have. I think it's a fair argument. It's a fair critique. It just is a matter of like how much do you want to incrementally increase that price as we go up? Because these are the self-branded proprietary soles by Thursday, so they're obviously gonna be a lot more affordable. They don't pay that Vibram upcharge of having the Vibram name. And maybe there's a slight quality difference here or there, but when it comes to a casually wearing more rugged sole, you can see where that decision was made. So then your quick comparison between the old school Captains versus the Heritage Captains, just to give you that rundown before we cut the new ones in half. You can see, starting from the bottom, working our way up, both still Thursday outsoles. Obviously, the Heritage Captain had a leather heel stack, and then you really start to see the differences is in the internal components that you never see unless you literally cut them in half. Because the regular Captain, and this is part of why it's such a good value for the price, you get a full-length veg tan midsole for $200. I think they're still $199. I don't think they've ever gone up in price. And then you've got that cork filling, which is mirrored there, but you can see how much thicker that midsole is on the Heritage Captains. Then you go up to the cork filling, which is matched on both. And then instead of this compressed cardboard as a stabilizer and kind of acting as a shank, in the Heritage Captain, gotta do the veg tan leather. And then instead of a steel shank that you can kind of see poking through right there, we did a leather shank. And the leather shanks are really nice because they compress with you. There's an argument to be made that they're gonna lose and they're gonna sag over time. But it's a trade-off of like, do you want this shape locked in forever where it's gonna have that exact shape because this tempered steel is not gonna bend and shape to your foot? Or do you want that custom fit and potentially losing a little bit of the support, but having a custom fit? For me, and especially like comparing it to the Pacific Northwest boots, I like that idea. Unless I was really working on something I needed the support, I like leather shanks. And then above that, in the regular Captains, you've got that fiberboard. With this boot, we've got obviously that big slab of veg tan leather, and even similar with the insole topper here, because the regular Captains, you have the lining leather and then some foam underneath of it. And then in the Heritage Captain, you still have that lining leather, but it's a little bit thicker and a little bit higher quality, and you have foam just running underneath the heel instead of the full length. And so now the question is, where does this StormKing Captain lie between these two boots? You know, is it a lot more like the Heritage Captain like it should be, or is it more like this? Where's the pros and cons? What's the differences? Let's find out. The blood core laces are finally done, so check them out below. If you've been needing a pair for your Drifter 3s, your Bear Slayers, your Indie ones, any of your boots and shoes to match your blood core kilties, to match your blood core belt, to match your blood core everything. So now we got the blood core laces done, and people have been hounding us to get these. So get them before they're gone. Check them out below. Get yourself some blood core laces. Okay, we got the Heritage Captain StormKing version cut in half. So if you're not subscribed, consider pressing that little subscribe button. If you want a pair of these, check them out below. They're limited quantities. You know, we only do them in batches because they're so different from their regular production. If they're sold out, get on the limited edition email list because that's who gets first access on the next drop. You get early access by like 2 to 6 hours usually. And if you disagree, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong with what you think is not undeniable about this or what you think we can improve on, because that's half the fun with this is, you know, we take everyone's feedback, because it's not just like, we're trying to prove everyone wrong. It's like, no, we're trying to make the most undeniable boot of all time, the highest value per dollar spent to make a true Heritage boot. So hit me with it, give me the feedback, prove me wrong. Okay, now let's see what's inside. Okay, now we got them all lined up with the Heritage Captain, the Heritage StormKing Captain, and the regular StormKing Captain. So, obviously, we got some differences in the heel stack. We kind of talked about that. If you want that unit sole, you don't really need the heel stack because there's no place for the heel stack. But one place that we could do different with this is we could do a similar construction like this, where you got that leather in the heel stack, but you have a lot more luggy of an outsole. And that's another thing we changed was I really liked this slanted heel. I like that little bit of a Western cut to it, makes it walk a little bit better, gives it a little different vibe. But a lot of people didn't like it, and a lot of people like, just give us a block heel. And so that's part of the reason why we went with this one. Is just let's do a classic block heel. But I think that's something that we could try in the future, is doing a more rugged outsole with a heel stack, even if it's just one little layer of leather. Actually, I just did this unboxing, so I know they can do it. This is one of their black label boots, and this is a lot more Pacific Northwest than it is like Thursday DNA. And they got that big chunky V100 two-piece outsole, but you can see there's a layer of leather in between those two. You know, obviously this is the StormKing version, so we use the StormKing outsole, and it's made to look more like the StormKing version of the Captain. But I think that's something we could do to make this better. And then moving up to the midsole, none of these have a full-length rubber midsole. A lot of times you see rubber midsoles sewn in through the construction because rubber bonds better to rubber than rubber to leather. And I, for some reason, thought that the first Heritage Captain had a rubber midsole, but it's glued straight to the leather. And you can see that midsole is a little bit thinner on the StormKing version. It's closer to the regular Captain than it is to the Heritage Captain. And I think that's fine. You know, this is more of a classic boot through and through, where it's a little bit more rigid. And so I don't mind the flexibility. I think that's maybe another point. Like if people are like, no, we want that super thick midsole, we want that rigidity. I think that's a place that we could bring that back, but I think it works for this style. And at the end of the day, it's still a veg tan midsole for a $235 boot. Okay, then we move up. All three have the veg tan Welt, and this is where it starts to differ from the regular Captain to the Heritage StormKing Captain, because you can see these are a lot more similarly built when you go up through the sole construction, because they still have that veg tan supportive layer. They have the veg tan shank, that veg tan insole. They're slightly different colors, but I think it's just a sanding job more than anything. And then this exact same insole construction, except maybe this foam is a little bit thicker actually. Yeah, that heel foam is a little thicker. So really the only two changes is a little bit thinner midsole and no leather heel stack. But both of those kind of fit with the StormKing vibe. And then obviously we forgot about maybe the most important part, veg tan toe stiffener, veg tan heel counter. You don't even get that in a $350 Red Wing. That's like vertically integrated. And that's part of why Thursday can do this at such a good price, is they're starting to get more and more vertically integrated, and they're such a big company that they can actually take advantage of that economy of scale, and instead of doing like what all these other old school brands do, where they just completely sell their name out and then they just keep increasing the price but dropping the quality but increasing the margin in between. Thursday is actually making high quality stuff with the capabilities they have, with the economy of scale that they've built to actually deliver to the consumer. That's ultimately the thing with all this. It's like, this is a $235 boot and it has all this on the inside. And so, is it still the highest value Heritage boot per dollar spent? I think the original one's more. You know, I think it's a little bit more heritagey, has a little more elements here and there, but it's a true Heritage boot. You're not gonna get much grip with this boot. It's really stiff, it's really rigid. Because it was so rigid with this thick of a midsole, we ended up putting relief cuts into the midsole because it was just almost immovable. And everything else pretty well stayed the exact same. So to me, it's still a pretty strong argument. I'm not completely opposed to being proven wrong, but I just don't see another boot out there for 235 bucks that can even get close. So let me know, prove me wrong. Let me know what you think. What do you think of my ideas for improvements? Do you think we should have gone with the thicker midsole and made it more rigid and having the relief cuts, or thinner so we don't have to have those relief cuts? Would you rather see a full leather heel stack next time with a little bit taller heel like this boot? Or do you like the little bit slimmer, tighter heel with having a unit sole? And also let me know what you think of the last, because that was a big part of this project, was taking the Thursday last that's really almondy and a little more dress oriented and broadening it out just a little bit, putting a true toe cap on it. That's what gives it that really chunky Heritage look. So let me know what you think about all that kind of stuff, because you know this is a cool project. It's really fun. It's a cool one to be a part of, and I'm really grateful for Thursday for letting me be a part of it. If you want a pair of these, check them out below, and thank you guys for all your support. And check out the Thursday unboxing video that has all these Pacific Northwest style boots that I didn't even know Thursday made. And go watch the first cut and half video. We launched these last year. Goes through a lot more of the story, a lot more of the ins and outs. So thank you guys. See ya. Okay, the princess is ready.